Hey everybody, welcome to Olympic Minds Leadership Beyond Limits. I love that word beyond. This is a podcast for people who really are the visionaries of visionaries, the leader of leaders, people who are looking beyond success into significance, people who want to move from mediocrity into mastery. Hey everybody, I'm your host Sherry Winn, two-time Olympian, national championship basketball coach, award-winning speaker and author, and the CEO of the Winning Leadership Company. So this is what I know after decades of training first elite athletes and then elite leaders people don't want theory. They don't want fluff. What they want is something that is heart-proven, grit-tested, and results-driven. And that's exactly what this podcast is about. Today, we're going to talk with Cameron Jones. I interviewed Cameron several months ago for a book I'm writing, or it's coming out, like today, a book that I've written. And then we had a conversation with his team. It's lovely to meet him. One of the things I love about him, he works for SilverRail. He's Chief Strategy and Commercial Officer. I think there's a longer title than that. You could tell him that, Cameron. The thing I loved about him is when I read his profile, what he said was this, like his goal is to be happy. Like, what a wonderful goal, right? We think that achievements will make us happy, and it's really the other way around. If we strive for happiness, then our achievements will fall into line for us. So everybody, I want you to introduce you to Cameron. Cameron's going to tell us a little bit more about himself, and then we're going to have a great, engaging conversation. Cameron.
Thank you very much, Sherry, and nice to be chatting to you again and to everybody who's listening to this podcast. So a little bit about myself. I live in the UK, just outside of London. I'm Australian originally, but I've been living in the UK for 18 years now. Have had a background in travel, which is one of the things that I have been passionate about all my life, and managed to move that passion into something that I do for a living. So that's worked out well for me. And as you said, I think you said you saw it on LinkedIn where I have be happy, and I'm kind of clear in my mind of what happiness involves. But I still get excited about achievements and all the physical things in life that it's hard not to. So it's kind of an ambition to be happy, and let's hope I continue to do that. But I work for a travel company called SilverRail. Our mission is to make rail as easy to book as all other travel products like air and hotel. And rail is a significant part of anyone's mobility in Europe. Most people would use the train to commute to work, if not commuting to work, for traveling around in countries for business or pleasure. So it's a really big part of people's lives, but it's very difficult to book online. So SilverRail is trying to make that easy and get more people on trains.
Wow. So Cameron, we talked about happiness, and you're like, well, I still want to achieve. Of course, like that's part of our human nature is to achieve. But tell me, with all the challenges that occur in our lives, and certainly we have a lot of challenges, like nobody gets to this life without challenges. How do you meet those challenges in such a way that the end result is still happiness?
For me, there's not been a sort of a defining moment in my life that was the sort of big challenge and everything changed after that. It's been a number of little things that have evolved both my style of leadership and you know what it is? It's not my style of leadership. It's the way I think about people and the way I think about what I want to achieve. And I think for me personally, central to all of that, no matter what happens around you, as long as you sort of keep my core values in play and consistent, then I feel like I'm doing what's right for me, and then I will be happy because I don't have any internal conflict with how I'm behaving and what I believe in. And for me, that's authenticity probably is the number one thing. And I really dislike it when I hear, like you started when you're talking, you're saying, let's cut through all the bullshit of fluff and theory, and let's talk about what's really happening. That's the stuff I love. I love it when I meet other people in the workplace that just get straight to the heart of a problem and get around all the noise and the mess. So authenticity is for me kind of core to what I want to try and stay true to. And you can't always do that, and you find yourself slip into management speak and all that stuff that's sort of fluff. But that's, I think, evolving to know exactly what is core to me, what my values are, and trying to stick to them.
I think that's such a big thing that you're talking about, is knowing your values, knowing who you are, aligning yourself with that consistently. And here's what I've discovered. Like when I was coaching basketball, I'd often see people who would say one thing, like these are my values. And then when the pressure came, and certainly there's pressure in every business, there's pressure, there's deadlines, there's KPIs, there's all these things, it's pressure. And then people start cheating, right? They get off their values and they start cheating to meet their goals. So what holds you to that line of like, when you're in a pressure scenario and you could cheat a little bit to get over here? What keeps you there? I mean, how do you make certain that you're living that authentic you and lining up with your values no matter what's occurring in the world?
I think it's having a long-term view and not thinking tactically, but always thinking about, where you want to be in how you want to be seen as an individual, as opposed to how you're responding to a certain item or event. What does that mean? Staying true to those core values, the authenticity. So, you could easily try and find a shortcut to get to somewhere where you want to be, and maybe you achieve it. But then would you look back in 6 months and go, I stayed true to myself and what I value? And if you didn't, then was that necessarily the right thing to do? And sometimes it is, sometimes, you might want to take a shortcut, but I think 9 times out of 10, it's probably the wrong thing to do. And therefore, if you think, how will I look back at this myself in 6 months' time? And how do I want to be seen in 6-12 months' time? Every time you deviate from those core values, then, even if it's for a short-term satisfaction, then it's going to hurt you in the long run.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I was taught a long time ago, I don't remember who taught it to me. I wish I did. But they said, if you woke up and you read the headline in the newspaper about the decision or choice you just made, how would you feel about that? Or how would you feel about going in and telling your family, your spouse, your children about what you just did? How would that make you feel? Right? And it's like that always stuck with me because I want to make sure that what I was saying aligned with what I was doing. Right. And so imagining a headline in a newspaper and people were reading it and me reading it and thinking, oh my gosh, like that's really what I did, or that's really what I said, and not being able to live past that. I think when we, like you said, the long term, if you cannot think about the moment, because in the moment it feels deep, it feels heavy, it feels necessary. But if we can think about the long term, then we can hold true to something that's going to be much bigger.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there as well. Is one thing that I always tell myself and my team, when you're under a high pressure moment with a client, say, there's things have gone wrong, both sides are to blame. I always say, our client is always going to remember how we behaved and how we acted in this moment. They're not going to remember who was wrong or who was right and whether you got it recovered, but how did you behave? And let's always be the ones that behave at how we want to be remembered. And stick to that. And that sort of aligns a little bit with what you were saying about the future and how people will see you. And I think, people remember feelings, before they remember events. And they'll, when I think of Sherry and I think of our time together, I remember how I felt, when we've talked and so forth. I don't remember what we spoke about, what was said. So I think both of those sort of things are interplay, which is people will remember feelings. That's what's important. That's what they'll remember in the long run. And then kind of what do you want people to say when you leave a business, when you retire or go to another one? What do you want someone to say at your departure, presentation? Who's going to turn up? That's probably a good first step. If no one turns up, then you're doing something wrong. If the room's full, then you're doing something right. So that's a little bit of like the press release in the future. What will the headline be for your life?
I think it's true about the emotion part you're just talking about, Cameron, is that we feel and remember emotions. I mean, there's a few people who have like photographic memories and maybe remember the whole conversation, but most of us just remember how we feel. And so what's interesting to me, like I'm looking at my past, is I can remember regrets a lot easier. So remembering the things I was like, oh man, I wish I would have behaved better. I wish I would have said that better. I wish I would have done that better. Those are the things that come up more often than like the successes, right? It's so interesting when you're looking back, like in our past, it's those things that haunt us about, I said this to this person or I did this to this person, even if the person doesn't remember it, which is kind of funny. How many times have you, the person's like, I don't even remember that. And you're like, well, I did this to you. No, I don't know. Well, I don't remember. But we remember it forever. And I think that if we understand how that impacts us, like that guilt that we carry or the regret that we carry, which we shouldn't anyway. Like I think carrying that's not healthy. But it's those things that we do to ourselves after the fact that we're not thinking about.
Yeah, we're our own worst critic, and that's such a cliche, but it's so true, isn't it? You imposter syndrome. You tell yourself you're good enough, and everyone else is smarter. And the reality, everyone else is just trying like you are, and everyone else is trying to make the way through just like you are. And but we do. I think our brains are wired to think negatively because it helps us evolve, right? And focus on the negatives and improve. But it's tough not to. But then equally, some of that drives you to be better, right? And that's okay. And just try and improve on it. Accept it, put it in a box, and try to improve on it.
I think that what you just said is really important, Cameron. What you said was like using an event to improve ourselves, not using the event to beat ourselves up. And so, how many people have I met that use an event that happened, a mistake that happened, to beat themselves up? And so instead of using it as that platform for the next step and for the improvement, they sit in that and they talk about, like, and it's part of what we do. We teach ourselves, you think about your parents or my parents growing up. How did we learn? Well, we got punished, right? And so we came to learn that punishment was the way to success. And what I say is, like, really, forgiveness is the way to success, because you can't live in the problem and get to the solution, right? So how do you get people, like your team members that you lead, and certainly they're going to make a mistake, how do you get them out of that self-punishment mode into the learning mode?
So a good example of this probably would be when we do our reviews, our common thing for companies to do, employee reviews. And I always structure them as, what did you achieve? Let's go through the data. And then basically what went really well, let's celebrate the successes, because you want to do that, and let's repeat those because you want to identify them and highlight them. But then rather than, it sounds cheesy, but rather than, what went wrong, you could say, with the benefit of hindsight, what could I have done better? And they're always open. It makes it possible for people to say, here's what I could have done with the benefit of hindsight. What we know now, how would I have done it differently? And so for me anyway, if we create that kind of an environment where, we could always do things, even if we did it really well, we could probably do it better with the benefit of hindsight. So what is that? And how do we continue to improve? And then, this sort of classic learning organizational stuff is just always use metrics and see how you can improve. And it's okay to make mistakes. And that's the hardest thing, like being a parent or being a manager, is to throw somebody into the deep end and let them make some mistakes. And as long as they're not high risk mistakes, then everyone sort of comes out better.
Well, I think the whole idea is letting people make mistakes, right? We have this mentality of saving people. I need to save them from the errors that I did. I need to save them. And I think save is the wrong mentality, right? Or rescue is the wrong mentality. Like, what we want to do is we really want to guide them, and we want to help them, and we want to support them, but allowing people to make mistakes and understanding the growth that comes from that. I think that's so important. And you said, like, it's so hard. Like, even if as a parent, you're like, like, my child is going to do this and it's going to hurt and whatever. But that's also a choice. Like, the choosing of how we feel about the mistake is also a choice that we can teach people, right? And I think what you said right then is about it with the benefit of hindsight. But if we can get people to look at it differently. So, my favorite word when I was a basketball coach was recover. So for 23 years, when my players made a mistake, I didn't care about the mistake. What I cared about was the gap between the mistake and the recovery, right? That's the recovery gap. That's what I cared about the most. So how could we get them to get from, here's the mistake and here's the recovery, how can we get that gap almost non-existent? How can we focus on that versus the mistake? Yeah,
it's actually something, sports kind of the interesting parallel here. It's so close to business, and hence why you're doing these podcasts, is, my son's 9 years old and he's pretty good at soccer. But when he makes a mistake or misses a penalty, he's really, really hard on himself. And I constantly do that. I say to him, look, it's not about the mistake. It's about how quickly you learn from it and recover. And the really true great athletes and great sports people are the ones that bounce back from the hardships and show themselves to be able to be strong enough to come back. It doesn't. In fact, it's kind of better if you make these mistakes and then you come back, because it shows you, how you can recover. So I like your measurement of time to recover is interesting. And the same thing for business, right? What I appreciate about the CEO of our company is if we lose a big deal and I'm really down in the dumps about it, then he will be the first one that says, doesn't matter, it's fine. We'll live another day. And he just picks me and the team straight back up. And that kind of leadership is really good. So I hope to resemble the same kind of leadership with my team is basically shortening that time because you've got to have it. You've got to kind of mourn the loss in some respects, but then being able to identify it. And I know I don't do a lot faster than my son, so I'm doing something better than a 9-year-old. That's good. But then how do you sort of come back quickly?
Well, I think that's the truth, is like really learning it, and you're teaching your son the great lesson right now. And your CEO is doing a great job of teaching you the lesson and remembering. It's hard when you put your heart and soul into something and it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out. It's really easy to go backwards and to beat yourself up and to say, I should have, like I should have done, this kind of thing. And that's the wrong thing to do, is to say, what could I have learned? How could I move this forward? And understanding, even if you do everything right, sometimes the loss is there. Like sometimes it's not even, it becomes the other person, their perception, what goes on with them. And what I learned from coaching, when I was a young coach, I'll never forget this. It was such a big mistake because I'd seen other coaches do it. And of course I didn't realize then, but they tried to fix a game right after the game. It was like, no, the emotions are too high. People need to come down from the loss or come down from the big mistake. And what I would do, I learned later in my career, was like, let's sleep on it. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Let's revisit this tomorrow when we're in a better space to revisit it. And let them go have their emotions for a little while, because you can't fix it then because emotions are too high. Oh my goodness, like, you know, I get yelled and screamed at, people would have all out fits and they're fighting each other. I was like, wow, that's... And so we would let the day go, and then we'd come back and have a better means for discussing it. So that we could have a way of looking at it differently. Especially me, I need to go, because what I thought happened often was different when I looked at the videotape.
Right, interesting. Wow. Yeah, with a different perspective. Yeah, it reminds me of something that one of my favorite podcasters, Scott Galloway, says, is things are never as bad as what you think, and equally things are never as good as what you think. And I think it's kind of just it's stopping this sort of peaks and extreme, you know, peaks and troughs of, you know, and like you said, you know, when you think things are really bad, they're never as bad as what you think. But equally, don't think that everything's going, you know, so it will come down. And you know, if you lower that those peaks and troughs a little bit, then you live a kind of a more stable life.
Yeah, and that's where the space, I think, that if people can just take a breath, you know, we're so into it at the moment, we get so emotional in the moment. If we can just learn to back up and take a breath and have a different perspective around it. You know, later in my career, I had this situation. We were the top rated team in the conference, and we're going to play the last rated team. There was 16 teams in our conference at then, and we won by 1 point at the last second against this team that only won like 2 games all year long. And I went in the locker room, I just said, let's just be grateful that you found a way to win. And that's literally all I said, and walked out. Like, I didn't yell or scream at them or blah, blah, blah. And so the next day, the way we recovered from that was, and this is back when they actually had tapes, right? This is a long time ago. So, you know, we had the 8-track tapes of the game, and it wasn't streamed. And I put it on a piece of cardboard, and I told all my team, we're not going to ever watch this. We're not going to ever watch this film, because this is not who we were. This is not who we are. It was just a blip, and we don't want to focus on the blip. What we want to focus on is to move forward from this. So we're going to destroy this game tape today. Everybody gets to stomp on it. Everybody gets to tell me. Everybody gets to tell me one thing they learned. I want you to tell me one thing you learned as a result of this game, and we're going to destroy this, and we're going to throw it in the trash today. And so, so that moment was the moment that we went from feeling like we were losers and how terrible we were to we're winners and we won the conference. Right? We win it out. So I think that when we can get people to understand, like, the moment's not as bad as they think it is. And if we can find a means to move them forward, then great things are going to happen. You know, so part of the job of a leader is really to have that perspective, right? To have that perspective of, hey, this isn't as bad as we think it is, and here's how we can recover, and bringing people along. So when you're meeting that, like you said, your CEO brings you in and says, look, we're going forward. So what are the messages that you can take to your team to help them, or what kind of things can you teach them? Because I think that a good leader is a great coach, right? I really believe that. What can you teach them? Do you have like sayings that you use often, or do you have different, you know, exercises that you can do to bring them forth, or what do you do to get them out of a deep loss, or deep, like the negative mindset that we often get, to bring them forward?
So, well, I'll tell you a slightly different one to begin with. And that's when we're in a sort of a slightly high pressure situation. And I've got this from, this kind of evolved between my CEO and I. So you're about to go into a big presentation or something. And, you know, it's quite stressful, you know, it's quite high stakes. And the thing he'd always say to me just before we go in is, don't fuck it up. So it's become a thing, and it's good because it basically goes, it just breaks all the tension, and you realize, you know what, at the end of the day, there's bigger problems in the world than this right now, and just helps you get on the straight and, you know, not be too highly strung. But in terms of the team, let me think, when they're down in the dumps, I think probably, like you said, a little bit of time, and let them have a little bit of their down in the dumps, and that's okay. Don't try and tell them you can't feel that way and you can't experience it. You know, you've got to let them do that. But then also just kind of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and realizing that this is just like, you know, a little blip on your life, you know, and a little blip in the company, and, you know, and look, things are never as bad as they seem. Kind of, that's often what I say as well. And, you know, we'll come back and, you know, what have we learned from it? And let's keep going. And because there's no point, what doesn't get you anywhere. Being negative and being wallowing in, you know, depression doesn't get you anywhere. And how do you bounce back? So I don't really have any little sayings. It's probably having a real conversation with people, you know, and just seeing how they feel. I don't sort of like, you know, pull out there's three things that I always say. It's probably unique to each situation.
Well, I think that's the big thing is like leaders are in charge of that ability to move past what we think are difficult challenges. So, certainly in your life, I'm sure that you've had big challenges. All of us do. This is not what I think people believe in. People that are successful like you, Cameron, they'll say, oh, well, he's born at the right time in the right place. And it was the golden, like he had the golden pathway in front of him and everything lined up perfectly for him. And I think one of the things people need to know is not true. A, it's not true. And B, that whatever that big challenge was for you, that you found a way through it. So what was the biggest challenge that you've had that you were able to move through? What was the biggest lesson, or how did you learn, or what did you do to get through that?
So there isn't one moment that stands out, but there's probably a consistent theme of kind of high pressure incident scenarios, times, challenges. Actually COVID comes to mind. For our business, it was pretty stressful, period. For everybody in the world. For us, it was quite stressful because our company, our company makes revenue when people get on trains. So, you can imagine with COVID that threatened the whole business. And you remember what it was like. When's this going to end? How will it end? Will the world have changed, etc. And in my personal life as well, there's been moments where something just hasn't gone to plan, and you're seemingly staring in the face of complete failure, complete disaster. But it's funny, actually. You supposedly have this fight or flight, gut reaction, but I feel like I don't have either of those. I have a new one. It's not fight or flight. It's kind of calm, neither fight or flight. And it's just I'm methodical about not getting into the drama of it all. And forcing myself not to think about the future and what could go wrong and all that sort of stuff, and just going, what can I do right now in this moment? And what can I do to be calm, methodical about the steps? What are the truths? What's the next thing I can do? And then take it step by step, rather than going scenario playing. This could happen and this could happen. There's no, like, when the shit's really hit the fan, then be close to the truth and be close to the near term and make decisions by decisions. And then you sort of go to some of the principles with the team, like communicate a lot, be transparent, be authentic, be honest. You don't have to have all the answers. Those sort of stock standard things you should do, and everybody, most people would learn about that in school and university and business school. And they're true. It's not that those theories or that are inaccurate. It's very true in those scenarios. I think people don't expect you to have all the answers in disastrous situations. They understand that if you're trying to work it out at the same time as them, they appreciate being told and being transparent, because then you're together, and then you find a common purpose, and then you work towards that purpose together as a team, as opposed to the leader doesn't have to have all the answers. You want to be able to guide and ask the right questions and leverage the skills of the team. But yeah, the sort of back to your original question, in those challenging times, I think probably what I've learned about it is in personal situations. I'll give you an example. My family and I were flying out to Australia a few Christmases ago, and we got to the airport and we realized that one of us didn't have a visa, and we thought we did for Australia. But I had the Australian passport, but not the citizenship, and then the airline decided not to let you on without the citizenship, and only the citizenship but not the passport. And this was an expensive flight. I had my 2 kids and my wife out of the airport, and they wouldn't let us on the plane. And then all of a sudden you go through all the scenario planning. Okay, I've got all the, everything's booked, and if this doesn't happen, and it's an expensive flight out to Australia. And then in that situation, it's like, okay, what can we do? And then just do one thing after another, and it resolved itself. We didn't get on that flight, but we got on the next one, and it cost us a little bit of extra money, but we resolved it. And it was a really, your kids are like, oh, I want to go to Australia. What's happening? And we're not going to go. And you just got to stay calm. So it happens in personal situations as well as work, and that's my lesson out of it. It's just calm, step by step.
Well, that's what I call the Olympic level mindset, right? You've trained yourself to not go down all these deep scenarios. You've trained yourself to stay in the moment, and I think that's a training, just like an athlete trains himself, right? It's a mindset that you train. So I had a recent incident where I was kayaking, and so I'm not one of these crazy kayakers. Like, I'm a lake kayaker. It's calm. I'm gonna just I'm on the top of the thing. But we're gonna go down a river close by the house one day, and so we get to the river, and I've done it before, but snow was still melting here. I live in the mountains, and it would rain, and I get there, and I'm like, man, that's fast. So looking at it, it's like fast. And I think it, and I say it out loud, but I don't think, well, we should just pack them back up and not go in. Like that was probably the thing I should have said. But instead we get in, and my friend has a dog on her kayak because we take her dogs. My dog, I have a dog in my kayak, and we start down, and before we get the first turn, she's already flipped. Like the river's so fast, she's flipped. She's going down the river. She's on top of her kayak. She's got her life vest on. But she's gone, so I go rescue the dog, and I catch up with her. You got to imagine, the Montana rivers are cold. Like when you're talking about snow melt, you're not going to be in that river very long before you could get. There's a risk. There's a true risk of hypothermia. So she gets out, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yeah, I just need to warm up." And instead of getting out like that, I'm like, "We should probably just like cancel," but we don't. So I don't listen to my own brain. Like he's telling me, "Don't do this." We get back in. We go down a little bit further, probably 10 minutes, and she flips again. Off she goes, dog's over here, go rescue the dog. Now I'm in a situation, it's really hard to get back on my kayak because it's like this, there are rocks here and it's flowing really fast where I got out, and there's a tree not far ahead of me that's jutting out of the river, but I don't know where she's at, and I'm like, I gotta get back in, I don't know what's going on. So I get back in, well the dogs are kind of like not settled, and they tip the kayak a little bit, and we end up in the tree, right? So now the water's coming on the kayak's sinking, the dogs are freaking out. I grab them, they have a little life vest that has a handle. I grab them, I throw them out of the kayak. They get halfway on land, but they're not, their little legs are still dangling in the water. So I reach a second time, and when I do it, the kayak flips even more, and my leg gets caught between the kayak and the log. So now all this river is flowing into the kayak, which is pressuring me against the log. Well, I don't know where my friend's at. I don't know if she's going to be able to come back. I don't know what's going on. And I knew that nobody was coming down the river because there's nobody that had gotten in when we had gotten in. So it's like, okay, what are my chances of getting help? I'm like, probably nil right now. And here's what I did. Here's where my mind went to. So you're talking about training the minds. I think this is where people can really understand that you can train your mind. These are my thoughts. Stay calm, breathe. You've got this. There's a solution to every problem. I didn't force myself to do that. It was the first thoughts that came out of my mind. I just kept saying that. Stay calm, breathe. You've got this. There's a solution to every problem. So I started trying to figure out, could I move the log? The log wouldn't move. Could I move the kayak wouldn't move. I'm going through this. It's 5 minutes into it probably. I'm starting to feel my leg, like I'm losing blood. Like I can feel like there's not a lot of blood going down my foot. And I go, okay, you've got this. Like just keep thinking. All I was doing is like, you've got this. Keep thinking. I was able to somehow lean over really far, and I took my opposite leg and put all my weight on one side of the kayak. And I was able to just this much room that my leg, slipped through. And I think about that because I think about the mindset that I had trained myself into. Now I wasn't training it for that moment, but training it to be calm. And so, Cameron, you talked about like your mind goes to calm and you think about the moment, like let's be in the moment, one step I can take. So what is it you do? Like I know what I do to train my mind, but what is it you do to train your mind so that it can be calm in the situations that you might be in?
I think it's kind of through experience, really. I don't think I purposely set out to say, hey, this is what I want to do in crisis situations. It was through, I'm just thinking about, when was the youngest crisis situation I had? I think it's just from a very young age. It's just how I evolved that thinking. So I was surfing with my brother once, and it was a really big surf back in Sydney, and we were getting pummeled by these sets. And I remember looking across at him and thinking, this could be the last time I see you, because it was pretty bad. And said, you know what, it's going to be fine. And what do I need to do? I need to make this next wave. I just need to make this next wave through that. And just need to wait. And then we both got in, and we were okay. So I don't know. It's just I've had incrementally, more crisis situations through my life. So it's probably just feeling it when it happens and being mentally conscious of what's going on, and don't get carried away with the emotions, and try to think logically and use that part of your brain in that time. But I can't think of how I've trained my mind necessarily to do it. It's more like unconsciously done it, I think.
Well, I think you talked about, being a surfer. And so being in those moments, like surfing is like most sports, there's moments of danger in almost every sport, right? And so in that moment, learning that you have to be literally in the moment. Like you can't go into all the what if scenarios that could happen, because then you're way off. You can't perform in the moment if you're in the what if scenarios that could go, I call them what if down scenarios. Like people love to live in the what if down scenarios. I could lose my, a surfboard could fly out from me. I could get caught underneath a wave. I might not be able to breathe. I couldn't hold my breath long enough.
Right.
I mean, we could get caught in all that, or we could stay in the present moment, which says, what do I need to do right now to make sure that I'm getting through this to the next moment? And I think sports is a really good way, learning to be in the moment, because if you get caught in the too far down, right? Either way, like if I get caught too far in the, this is gonna be a great ride, blah, 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 and I'm too far in all the great things, or if I'm too far in all the negative things, then I can't perform right now in the moment. And that's the magic moment, is the moment right now, right here.
I think sport is so good for everybody as they're growing up and in their life. I look at both of my kids and they're both heavily into sport, and I just see all the skills they learn about it. Having respect for your teammates, being able to work as part of a team, turning up for training, learning how to deal with disappointment, learning how to deal with success as well, and learning a new skill, like being frustrated that you can't do it, but then realizing you just got to stick to it and keep going, and you can do it in the end. Yeah, I think I've seen both my kids through sport be such an important part of their education, as well as the academia and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, a lot of what you're talking about in sport is, as you know, it's direct parallel to life.
Yeah, so how do we people who don't play sport, right? So we get so much through sport because, like all the things you just mentioned, the discipline, learning responsibility, learning your role, learning how to be coached, learning how to, like, you're going to have failure. Like it's imminent. Like if you're ever an athlete, there is going to be failure. It's imminent. It's going to happen. And you have to learn to, kind of get through that so you can reach the next pinnacle. So if you have people that haven't played sports, how do you help them with failure, and how do you help them understand like the discipline and the resilience that it takes to get to that next level?
Yeah, I mean, they've got to find that somewhere else, haven't they? Whether that be, I don't know, chess isn't really sport, some kind of something where, whatever their passion or their hobbies are, I guess, is to throw themselves into it as much as they can. Because if you're not lucky enough to be able to play sport for whatever reason, how do you find that in other things? How do you find that those same challenges, those same risks that you put yourself on the line? And it could be, I don't know, a book club and reading in front of people, or writing poetry, or or anything like that.
Yeah, you just have to find something that relates to people, because it is. And
risk involves risk. It involves you getting out of your
there is a risk. I mean, every day there's a risk. You don't know what's going to happen in the days, whatever's going to happen. But I will tell you this is one of the biggest challenges, and you mentioned it earlier, was that I have as a coach and coaching people, even at your level, Cameron, is there's this imposter syndrome. So that comes from this overriding self-doubt or this overriding feeling of unworthiness. And many people live in that space of, I'm not good enough, or I won't be able to make it through it, or really if anybody found out who I truly was, they wouldn't want me here. So do you meet that? Because it's a mindset that will destroy the potential of a team member or even a C-suite executive. Have you met that kind of mindset, and how do you help people get through a mindset like that?
Yeah, and I've had that mindset as well. Often have it. I think it's common in more people than you can imagine. I bet you agree with that. So look, again, I think through experience, throwing my team into things, throwing myself into things where I are uncomfortable, and just proving over and over again you can do it, and you've done it, and you've had success, it chips away at that mindset. And probably, some people never get over it completely, and even look back at their life and go, did I really deserve all of that? Was I really that good? Probably you were, otherwise you wouldn't have achieved it. And probably everybody else is thinking the same thing, and it's okay. We're, like I sort of touched on earlier, I think we're all trying to get through this life and work out, what makes sense for us. And so what if you're an imposter? You're doing it.
Well, I think that people get caught up in this, have the imposter syndrome, like it's a disease. I'm like, no, look, you just mentioned it. All people have it. Like when we're asking ourselves to level up, there's going to be this moment of incredible doubt. Like, I don't know if I can do this. This is really hard. And what you just said about training yourself to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Like it's again, that's just that mindset of, I'm going to put myself in this uncomfortable situation because I know if I can get comfortable with the uncomfortable, if I can put myself somewhere where growth is necessary to get to the other end, then I will get there. And so it's that kind of thing that's what I call the Olympic level mindset, because a lot of people get to that same place and then they'll go, nope, like this is it. Like I've reached as far as I can go. Nope. And then you find them, that's when they quit. That's when they search for another job. That's when they, a lot of people, I think, just decide at some point they're only as good as X, and then they just stop.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Sometimes maybe that's okay. Sometimes maybe people reach a place and they're really happy in that place, and that's great. I think the world needs all sorts of people to do everything, but that's not something that I live my life by. But that's not because I'm always yearning to be something more or feel like I haven't achieved. There's actually I've forgotten his. There's an acceptance speech by Dumb and Dumber actor. What's the Dumb and Dumber actor? The movie Dumb and Dumber. Ace Ventura, Carrie. Gosh. Anyway,
I know what you're talking about, but I'm at loss for words too, because I can see him in my mind. But yeah,
he does this acceptance speech for winning an award, and he sort of said it's wonderful because he gets up there and he talks about, now that I've won this, just maybe I'll be enough. And he sort of looks at everyone, and then he said, because this is really important. Oh gosh, I've forgotten his name. With The Mask, he was in that as well.
Yep.
Him, yeah. So Google that person. If we can remember what his name was, Google him acceptance speech and watch that. It's brilliant, and it just shows you how let's not get think out we're too important in this world, and let's get a grip. It's really good.
Yeah, I used to think the same way, Karen. I can remember that. I thought, well, if I can just be, like All-American, I'll be somebody. And then it was like, that didn't do it. Well, if I can be an Olympian, and then I would be somebody. Well, that didn't do it. I have to do it twice, then I'd be somebody. Well, no. Well, if I can be a national championship coach, then I'll be somebody. Like this whole illusion of, when I achieve this, then this is going to happen to me. And that's really backwards.
Yeah.
None of that gave me what I was looking for. It was, I had to go inside myself to understand, look, I was already, and this is what I tell people all the time, you're born a winner. And then somebody else convinces you that you're not. And that's where we all live in this, whether it's unfortunate, but we have coaches, teachers, bosses, parents who somehow teach us that we're really not a winner. And I like to say, you're born that way. And if you know that you're born that way, and then other people convince you that you're not, you just got to reach back and understand that was your right. Your right was to be as this winner or worthiness or whatever you want to call it. And then we reach for all these titles, these awards, these things, and they don't give us what we think that we ought to have, because you can't get it from the outside. It's got to come from the inside.
That's true. Although the one observation I would make is believing you're a winner, but then equally believing that there is work to do and you can improve. So I see this with both my kids, and one of them has not the natural talents that the other one has. However, she has this grit that has evolved from starting here and ending up here. Mm-hmm. And whereas the other one is very naturally talented and is here already, so it doesn't necessarily can just do everything, right? So it's not as there's this believe you're a winner, but also believe you can even get better. So he should go from here to here, and that's this sort of grit that that I see. So it's almost like believe you're a winner, but believe you can improve even more. Like it's not that's not it. You're not done. Like grow.
There's a podcaster I listen to, and one of the things she says is learn to be joyfully incomplete. So you have this idea that you're really good and you can get better, but you don't beat yourself up. Like it's just like this joyful place of understanding where you are and knowing there's more. Like you don't have to settle. And and I think that's such a great thing to think about. It's like joyfully incomplete. Like I can be joyful at where I am. I can celebrate where I am, and I can also understand there's more. Like there's depending on how much I want to grow and how much I want to learn and what I want to achieve. It's different for everybody. We don't have to put our sights on what somebody else does. It's just it's for you. It's for you to feel good about you, and that's why I loved what you said about you're hardworking, you're results oriented, and you're also happy. Like you're always looking at the happy space, because that space is what makes us want to do more. Like if you believe you just sucked all the time and you hated yourself, it's really hard to get motivated from there.
Yeah.
Like you got to feel some of that. Yeah, you got to feel some of that success. So Cameron, if there's something that I haven't asked you and you want to share with folks right now, what would that question be, or what would that thing that you would want to share with people that we haven't covered?
So one thing that I find interesting, this is with how to find happiness, or how to find the job that you want, and it's this Japanese framework called Ikigai. I don't know how to actually pronounce it, but it's a sort of a 4-circle Venn diagram, and it looks at, you should Google it again. It's a really interesting concept. It looks at how do you find happiness, and it's in work and what you're doing, and it's and the four circles are doing something that you love doing, do something that you're really good at, do something that the world needs, and do something that pays you well. And if you can find something that does all those things, and it's a really interesting diagram. It sort of shows you if you're doing what you love and you're really good at it, but it doesn't pay well and the world doesn't need it. It's a passion. It's not actually. It's something that you're just passionate about. And it's how those four circles intercept and in each of those little quadrants. And it's just really interesting to look at it and think about what you're doing in your life and where you sort of feel you are. And are you comfortable with where you are, or do you want to go somewhere else in it? And then how would you change? So I only found that a few years ago, and I thought I hadn't seen it before. And I thought it was just a really interesting framework to think about your life, because everyone sort of says, just do what you're passionate about. But I'm not sure that's necessarily the best advice. I think that's one piece of advice. But if you're really passionate about it, and the world doesn't need it, and it doesn't pay well, or if you're not good at it, you're in a bad place, then you're not going to have balance, and you need money in this world to get by, you need to be improving the world to feel like you're doing the right thing. So I think, anyway, that gave me a really interesting framework. So for anyone else, I'd say just think about that, Google it, have a look at it, and think about how that applies to your life.
I love that. You got to think about what the world needs. I mean, if the world doesn't need it, then you're not going to get very far with that talent. You have to figure out how your talent can fit into that, right? How your passion can fit into that. Because I think that if you have the passion and you can figure out how does the world need it, right? Or if you have the talent, how does the world need it, and how can the world use it, then you will get paid for it. And if you can't figure that out, you're not going to pay for it. And it also puts you in your happy place. So, well, Cameron, this has been phenomenal. If people had a question, about you or something that you said, how would they find you?
Oh, good question.
LinkedIn? Is that the best?
Yeah, that's probably the best place. LinkedIn, Cameron Jones and SilverRail, and then send me a note through LinkedIn.
Yeah. So, folks, hey, I just really appreciate you guys joining us, and I hope today that you heard something that's going to move you forward to get you toward that Olympic level mindset that Cameron talked about, that I talked about today, because that's the difference. It's not just your physical talent. It's not your talent alone. It is the mindset that goes with the talent. You have to have both. You have to have both. I'm not going to lie to you. You can't have one without the other. You have to have both. With the people who want to live that next level, who are really looking at, refocusing when others freeze, or you're leading with unshakable conviction, that is the mindset. So come back, follow us, subscribe, and have a winning day. Bye now.